Can you hear me? Okay, sorry for the technical challenges, a little bit of it on the sound system. But good morning, how are you doing? Have you woken up well? How are you doing today? This is the Breakfast Show. I am your host, Lillian Thomas. I hope you are doing well. It has been a very chilly Thursday morning. It is not the usual mornings that you're used to. I woke up and it was raining very early in the morning. Not the kind of weather you want to get out of the house with, but we gotta do this. We gotta talk to you people. We gotta educate the farmers. We have to do the shows as we need to. Anyway, and we need to make money at the end of it all because people need to make a living. So you have to do everything you have to do in order to make a living. If you are watching us for the first time, can you kindly follow our pages on Facebook? We are at Farmers. On YouTube, we are at Farmers Media. So on YouTube, go and subscribe to our page. And we need to get to 100 subscribers. Currently, we are at 70 something subscribers. If you can help us get to 100 subscribers, we'd be really grateful. So if you are streaming us live on Facebook, you can just take a short time, some 2 minutes, go to YouTube and subscribe to our page, and then you hit the notification bell, the bell beside that subscribe button. Just hit it, and then every time we go live, you'll always be notified. You will always know whenever we go live and whenever we upload a video. This week, we've been discussing everything related to crops. So from Tuesday, we've done something related to crops. So on Tuesday, we did something on crop production. And then yesterday, we started on tomato farming. We covered a little bit of the production process. So it was all about land preparation, how you grow the tomatoes, how you manage them, even up to harvesting. That's what we did yesterday. So if you missed the show yesterday and maybe you'd be really interested in knowing about tomato farming, you can just go and check whatever we did yesterday. And then today, we are going to be discussing pests in tomato farming. That is our topic for today. So, if you are a tomato farmer, or rather, you are an entomologist and you have more information about the pests and the diseases we have in tomato farming, you can be sending us your comments on our Facebook page at our farmers. I'll be sampling them in the second half of the show. But you can keep conversing with us. Tell us where you're watching the show from. How is it like at your place? Has interested you about our programs? What would you like to hear in our programs? What would you like us to cover? We'd be glad to sample your comments when the time comes in the second part of the show. As you know, I am anti-war positive vibes. Yes, I will stick to that. You like anti-war positive vibes. So today, my quote today says, your success is based entirely on your attitude, commitment, and self-discipline. Your success is based entirely on your attitude, commitment, and self discipline. I feel like that is more self explanatory, but we will be looking at it when we will be wrapping up the show. We usually do that when we are wrapping up the show. We will just get into more details about it, but just have it in mind if you're starting your day, whatever you are planning to do, your success is based entirely on your attitude, commitment, and self discipline. You can find out what attitude is, what commitment is, what self discipline is. You can as well tell me what you understand by that quote. I love hearing feedback from you. I really do. I really do. And that's why I keep sampling your feedback. Every time you tell me something, I always read it out. So make sure you're sending me your comments on Facebook at Farmers, on YouTube at Farmers Media. Yesterday, in our discussion about tomato farming, we started from the production and we actually covered everything on factors you need to consider before you get into tomato farming. And we looked at the conditions that you need to practice tomato farming. And we realized that tomatoes can only be grown in places with well drained soils. They don't do well in waterlogged soils. We realized they need temperatures of 21 to 24 degrees during the day. At night, they need temperatures of 17 to 19 degrees Celsius. If you have temperatures above 27 degrees Celsius, your tomatoes are likely less to have less fruits, meaning lower yields. If you have temperatures lower than 12 degrees Celsius, your tomatoes are likely to suffer from chilling injury. Okay? Those are the conditions we looked at. We said it needs moderate humidity, moderate rainfall, everything for it was moderate. The pH needed is 5.5 to 7.5. And we said you can only know the pH of the soil when you do a soil test. And if it's the first time you're getting into tomato farming, work with an expert. Let the soil scientist come to your place, do a soil test. They will tell you the pH of your soil, the nutrients you have in your soil, the nutrients you're lacking in your soil, and they will advise you accordingly on the fertilizers you can apply on your soil to compensate for the nutrients you don't have, at what amounts you apply your fertilizers, and at what period you apply your fertilizers. That was it about the conditions that you need for tomato farming. And then we got into preparing the nursery in order for you to raise your seedlings. And we said you have to raise your nursery because we need water to drain. We don't need it to be waterlogged, okay? And we said you use compost in your nursery, but make sure it is not wet. Make sure you're using dry compost in your nursery to raise your seedlings. And we said tomato seeds are really small. So when you are planting them in the nursery bed, you use very minimal depth. And we said a depth of 1 centimeters would be good enough. The tomato starts sprouting after 8 days, and then it is ready for transplanting after 4 weeks. That is like a month. Okay, that was it about the nursery preparation, how to raise your seedlings in the nursery. And then we talked about transplanting. In transplanting, we realized that you transplant majorly early in the morning, and we said make sure that when you are transplanting, you water your seedlings in the before you transplant in order for you to make it easier for you to uproot the seedlings, and also to ensure that when you are uprooting you get out with a little bit of soil that enables it to establish easier in the new field. And we said some like 2 weeks before transplanting, you start preparing your plant for the normal field conditions that they will be having, which is a process we call hardening off. In hardening off, you reduce the amount of water you apply to your crops, you remove the shade that you had put on your seedlings, you remove the mulch. It's like you are exposing the crop. You're just getting it ready for the conditions that they are going to be getting next. So you reduce the amount of water you apply, the number of times you apply the water, remove mulch, expose the plant, remove even the shade. That's what you do before transplanting. And then after you have transplanted, we looked at the management of the crops as they grow. And we realized most tomatoes take 3 to 4 months in order for them to mature. But within this period, there are several things you need to be doing. You need to apply your fertilizers as a way of top dressing in order for your plants to get the nutrients that they need, okay? You need to do weed management. Weeding is very important in order to prevent weeds competing with your tomatoes in growth and competing for nutrients and sunlight and water. You need your plants to grow well. And because we realized also weeds help in transmission of diseases and pests to your crops, and we don't want that in our farms. So we said you weed fertilizer application, you do weeding. It is very important when you are doing your practices. And we said for most people who grow the indeterminate tomatoes that really grow very high, they need support in order for them not to fall. So we talked about giving them support, which we call the staking, and you use a string and poles and a wire in order for you to do that. We also talked about watering the tomatoes, and we said make sure that your tomatoes are watered well, adequately, at the right time. We advise that you water your tomatoes in the morning or in the evening when the evaporation rates are quite low and the transpiration rates are quite low in order for the plant to absorb more water. Later on, we looked at some of the varieties that people grow, especially right here in Kenya. So we covered something on Kilele F1 that is usually grown in the dry areas, and we covered all these varieties that we covered. We discussed about how long it takes to mature, the yields you expect. We looked at the tomatoes you need when you are doing for market farming, like markets for the normal markets. And we said some of them can be for the fresh market, you can grow something like moneymaker. And we said for the processing industry, we grow tomatoes like Roma VF, Nema 1400, we grow the Heinz tomato. Those are the varieties that we grow for processing industry. And that is what we covered yesterday, just in case you missed the show. I've just given you like a summary of what we did today. So that is it. And we got up to harvesting. When you harvest your tomatoes, how you harvest them, how you take care of them, how do you store them. We covered that yesterday. So, like today, it's more of a continuation of whatever we started yesterday. So, today we will be talking about the pests that affect our tomatoes. And then tomorrow, we will be wrapping up our show by discussing the diseases that we have in our tomato farms, and also, if you have any question from the discussions we've had this week on the breakfast show, from Monday we did something on disasters in agriculture. Tuesday we did something on crop production. Yesterday we did the foundations of tomato farming. Today we are doing something on pests in tomatoes. Tomorrow we will be doing something on diseases. If you have any questions related to those topics, send them to our Facebook page. Just post them in my comment section. I'll review them and then I'll be answering your questions tomorrow. So, tomorrow we will be doing the diseases and any questions that you have concerning tomato farming and all other topics that we've discussed during the entire week. And you can as well let me know what you need us to be discussing next week. We will try and incorporate that into our programs. So, today about pests and diseases. In every normal setup, like you are growing crops, your crops are bound to be affected by pests. What is a pest? We did that like 2 3 weeks ago. We needed something on integrated pest management. Yes, it affects your crops. You have pests that affect your crops, and in other times, they can actually, when they affect your crops, they either lower the yields, affect the productivity rates, or else they spread diseases to your crops. So, depending on what they do. When you are in the farm, sometimes you have harmful pests, and at other times, you have beneficial pests. So this is in terms of you have pests that can actually attack other pests. So sometimes you have a pest that you need to control and you need to use another pest to control it. So one becomes the harmful pest, the other one becomes the beneficial pests. If you are not careful in your farm, you don't control your pests, you can lose your yields 100%. Like you'll have nothing to harvest at the end of the period. It happens. For tomato farming, if you don't control the pests, you can lose more than 70% of your produce. That is like a total loss. It's like you just never did the farming process. And you can only identify the pests when you do pest scouting. And what is pest scouting? Pest scouting, you regularly check on your crops for pests and diseases. So you like make a timetable and we say like, if you are pest scouting, do it like 3 times a week. That is more conducive. Do it like 3 times a week. It keeps you updated of anything happening in your farm. And we pest scout in the morning and in the evening because that's the time you can find pests on your crops. During the day, you find that they are hiding. You can never really identify any pests on your crops because they are in hiding. So you pest scout in the morning and in the evening. How do you pest scout? You walk into your farm randomly, like look at the crops, like it's more of sampling if you have done sampling before. So in a row, let me say in a row, I have 10 crops. If I have 10 crops in a row, I can try and sample 4 to 5 crops in that row. You come, you look at the leaves, see if there is any difference, if you can see any insect on your leaves. Look at your leaves, look at your flowers, look at your buds, look at your stem, and actually look at your soil. In the soil, we have pests that live in the soil and attack from the roots, from the stem coming up. So you look at all these things in order for you to be able to identify pests. And was it yesterday? No, it was the other day. I introduced you to another hack. If you really can't tell what pest you have in your crop or what disease is affecting your crop, have you heard of the Plantix app? So Plantix app, it's let me spell it for you. It is Plantix. That is Plantix. You can download Plantix on Google Play Store. It is there. If you have an Android phone, you can download the app. The app comes very handy in that when you have the app and you install it in your phone and you have data, you walking into your farm and you identify there is a problem with your crops, like there's a pest that is infecting your crops or there is a disease that is infecting your crops. You use your phone and log into the app, take a photo of that crop or a photo of that pest, and then the app will diagnose it for you. It will scan the photo, diagnose it for you, and then it will tell you what the problem is, what pest it is, what disease it is, and it will also tell you the remedy, like the control measures that you need to be taking. So if you are a farmer and you think you're very clueless, you can't identify what is affecting your crops, just download the Plantix app, use it. Sawa? Familiarize yourself with it. Actually, if I am to look at it right now, how it works, if I log in right now today and I search for like the tomato crop. So I search for tomato crop, it will give me the fertilizer calculator of how much fertilizer I need to apply. But we said you can only determine that when you do a soil test on your farm. So it will give me the pests and diseases that affect tomatoes. So in the seedling stage, it is giving me dumping off of seedlings. Insects, it has given me aphids, other insects, slugs and snails, and grasshoppers. During vegetative stage, it gives me early blight, tomato spotted wilt virus, tomato yellow leaf curl virus, bacterial spot and speck of tomatoes. During flowering stage, we have early blight, tomato spotted wilt virus, tomato yellow leaf curl virus, bacterial spot and speck of tomato. During fruiting stage, it gives me tomato late blight, bacterial spot, spider mites, thrips, and all these things. Even during harvesting stage, it gives me diseases that you can actually get during that stage. And it tells you how the symptoms looks like, how you can control, how you can actually make sure you are preventing such things from happening in your farm. So just make sure that you have this app in your phone, okay? I want to talk about the pests that we have in our tomato farms. You can keep telling me the pests that you've seen in your tomato farm, and then we'll be discussing them as we go on with the show. I will start with the first pest is a cutworm. A cutworm is more of a caterpillar. Sometimes they come in shades of green, sometimes in shades of brown, and they live in the soil. If you have seen a caterpillar, you really know what a cutworm looks like. They live in the soil, and later on, they just actually change into moths as the stages progress. But cutworms are in another stage. They affect mostly tomatoes, especially in the seedling stage. In the seedling stage, this is how it affects the crops actually. It is a cutworm. Just as the name suggests, it is a cutworm. So it cuts your seedlings. whenever they have emerged, or when you have them in the nursery bed, or when you have transplanted. It cuts your seedlings at their stem base. You see the stem base, like this is your crop. Your crop is in the soil, and this is the entire crop. So this is the stem, and then this is the soil. You find it cuts your crop at this level. And you can actually notice it a lot, especially when you are doing thinning or when you are transplanting. You find that your crops, your tomato seedlings, have been cut at a certain point. Like they are cut. They cut. And that means the growth won't be taking place. It is said that these cutworms mostly are harbored around by weeds. So, in order to control these cutworms, you actually have to get rid of weeds in your farm even before you get to transplanting period. You see, when you are still in the nursery bed, like 2 weeks before transplanting, so that you ensure you don't transfer them into your farm when you have transplanted and then they go and cut all your seedlings and then you have no crops to be growing. So you ensure that you remove all weeds like 2 weeks before. In the preparation of land, I know we've always talked about sustainable agriculture and conservation agriculture and how we need zero tillage. But for this crop, actually plowing and harrowing of the land helps minimize it, because when you plow, harrow your land, you dig your land, you actually expose the cutworms. You expose them. When they are exposed to too much heat, too much sunlight, they can desiccate. Desiccate is like drying up, so they won't be as effective as they should be. Also, when you expose them, you might find that you've exposed them to natural enemies that will actually attack them and help them reduce in your farm. And also, when you are harrowing and digging and plowing, you can actually be, you see, when you harrow and then you dig, you might cut them. You might bring their existence to zero level. So that's another way of you actually controlling the cutworms. For people who transplant, there's another method in whereby when you are transplanting, you can actually cover your seedlings in order to protect them from being attacked by cutworms. Most people use, you see, toilet roll. Do you know? I know you know a tissue paper. So I assume you're very sophisticated and you use tissue papers. A tissue paper, when you are done with the tissue paper, you see the like hard material that remains, that had the tissue on it, the tissue roll. You use it when you are growing your transplant. So this is your transplant. You take your tissue roll and you use it to cover your transplant. And the good thing with the tissue roll, it actually decomposes. So you won't have a risk of it being harmful to the environment. It will decompose after some few weeks. And you do this for the like first 2 weeks after you have transplanted, and it helps protect your crop from being attacked by cutworms. When you find a place whereby you have spotted their effect, if you dig near the crop, if you try to turn the soil near the crop, you can actually find them inside. You can find them where they are inhabiting and you can kill them at that level. When I discussed about integrated pest management 2 weeks ago, we talked about biological control of pests. And in biological control of pests, we said at some point you use natural enemies, other pests, to control some pests. For things like cutworms, cutworms actually, if you have ants or you have parasitic wasps, they can help in the control. So not all things you see in your farm or organisms you see in your farm are as harmful. So ants will help you in the control of pests of the cutworm. If you have ants in your farm, you are lucky because the control is made easier for you. We are trying to find the images that we can upload for you so that you can be able to identify these pests. And I know my director is doing that and she'll be uploading for you some images, but you can as well. We are in a position where we are able to access as much information as possible. Make sure you are using the information available to get what you need. So my director is actually going to put up an image for you about the catworms. So she has a catworm image. She's putting it up for you, and you can be able to identify a catworm when you see one in your tomato farm. Now that I've told you what it does, the effect it does, and I've told you the control measures, you can be able to identify it. It is more of a caterpillar. I know she's putting up for it up for you. You can have a look at it as she also tries to find other pests and diseases that we are looking at. If you weren't aware of what a catworm looks like, now I think you know. If you didn't know the effect, now I think you know. If you also didn't know the control measures, now I think you know. I think I'd be more specific that today I am looking more about, because I realized if I am to tell you about the chemical control, I'd be really confusing a lot of you. So I am telling you more of the organic control of these pests and diseases. And reason why I am doing this is because I realized last week I did a lot of things on sustainable agriculture. We've done a previous show on organic farming. Yesterday, Conrad did something on organic farming. And we said the world is trying to shift towards this other end of the world. So, this other end, we are trying to minimize the use of chemicals as much as possible. So, I am trying to educate you on other ways in which you can use to control your pests and diseases, such that we have very minimal chemical use in our farms. The health crisis that we have around, people are opting for organic products. And then, you know, with tomatoes, some people always apply the chemicals in wrong amounts, and you end up having residues. Even when you're coming to the market, you look at someone's tomato and you can really identify it still has a lot of chemicals on it. So, we are giving you more of long term measures of what you can be using in order to control these pests. And I think I should have mentioned before I started, sanitation in the farm goes a long way in controlling pests and diseases in your farm. Sanitation in your farm goes a long way in controlling pests and diseases in your farm. Make sure your farm is very, very clean. Very clean. And by clean, I mean clean. You don't have weeds. Make sure you have no weeds in your farm. Weeds tend to harbor a lot of insects and a lot of pests. Make sure your farm is very clean. The spacing should be right. So if you do these things, it becomes so easier for you to manage the pests and diseases that we have on our farm. So the second pest, it's a very common pest. I think in almost all vegetables that we grow, it usually affects every vegetable that we grow. It's very common in horticultural crops. The second pest is aphids. The second pest that I am going to be talking about are aphids. Aphids are very small insects. Most of the time, they are usually found on the underside part of the leaf. So when you like lift your leaf up, they are usually found on the underside part of the leaf. They attack the crop by actually they suck the liquid substance from your plant, which is called sap. They suck the sap, and you can actually realize you have a presence of them because when they are in your crops, they tend to leave a curling effect on your leaves. Your leaves tend to curl upwards. So when you find your leaves are curling upwards, just take a look on the underside of the leaf. You are most likely to identify some little crops on the underside part of your leaf. And sometimes they can be found on the shoot, and they also cause, you see, when they cause the curling effect in your leaf, so your leaf kind of shrinks, curls and shrinks kidogo. It kind of gives it a deformed deformed growth. It gives it deformed growth. Your leaves kind of look deformed. If your leaf was supposed to be looking like this and then it's not curled, it looks deformed. What other effect does this aphid have on your crop? It actually causes stunted growth. The moment they are on your farm and they are a lot, all your crops are going to have stunted growth. And they can easily spread on your farm. You have to be very, that's why I was saying pet scouting is very important and you have to do it regularly. If you did it on Monday, make sure you're doing it again on Wednesday, on Friday, on Sunday. Make it very regular for you to be able to identify. If you identify today your leaf is curling, you know what you need to be doing. You know what is happening to your crop. So don't go a whole week and you are not looking at your farm. How do you control aphids in your farm? First of all, I'd say that maintain very high hygiene in your farm. The sanitation levels have to be very, very high. We've had people, because most people say when you try to control it more of physically, organically, they tend not to go away and they end up using chemicals. But you can use biopesticides, which are very conducive for use and they have no effect. They are not harmful to the environment. So we use mostly we use the neem soap. We use the neem soap and we use the neem insecticide, like the spray. That is what we spray on the aphid. And also, when you find a certain part of the plant is attacked, kindly cut that part of the plant. Cut it off. If it is a leaf, make sure you are cutting it off. And remove weeds from your farm. Again, back to the basics. Remove weeds from your farm. Weeds tend to have aphids a lot, and so you find they are migrating from the weeds to your crops. Remove weeds from your farm. Sanitation in your farm is paramount. If you have any plant debris on your farm, also get rid of the plant debris on your farm. There's a thing about everything has to be done in moderation in order to control pests and diseases. You find that most pests and diseases come as a result of either you are having too much water in your soil or too much fertilizers in your soil or because of deficiencies. Either you're lacking some nutrients in your soil or rather you are having less water in your soil. It is very advisable that you do everything in the amount that they are required. So my director is putting up an image of an aphid on the screen. You can have a look and be able to identify what an aphid looks like. I have told you the effects it has on your crop. It makes your leaf to curl, kind of gives it a deformed appearance, okay? And then when you have them on your farm, they tend to give plants stunted growth. Those are the effects of the aphids, and you can control them. Sanitation levels in your field have to be very, very high. Remove weeds, remove plant debris. If you find a part of your plant that is actually affected, cut it off and don't let it stay in your field. It can always move to the next plant. Don't let it stay in your field. And as said, when they are too much, when we talked about integrated pest management, we said you always try every other method first, like we will use the biological method, the physical method, and use this other method, cultural method, which is all about the field sanitation and how you prepare your land and everything. We use all these methods. But when we find they are not as effective and we find that the amount of pests we have in our farm are going to bring us so much losses if we don't control them, then we opt to chemical use. And here we are advocating for the use of biopesticides. And I advocate if you can find a neem soap, a neem insecticidal, please use it. Please use it. It is very, very effective in your farm. Okay? So we are going to be taking a very short break. But when we come back, we are going to be looking at other pests that are affecting our tomatoes. So we'll be looking at the root knot nematodes. We'll be looking at tomato whiteflies. We'll be looking at thrips, and we'll be looking at leaf miners and the fruit borers. That's what we'll be looking at when we come after the break. So today entirely we are just talking about the pests and the diseases that we have on our tomato farms. I'll be checking if we have any. Okay, I don't see anyone giving me any feedback, but I'll be sampling your feedback when we come back after the break. So make sure you are talking to me. Tell me where you're watching the show from. Um, I need to know, what do you know about the pests in your tomato farm? How do you control them? How effective has your method of control been? What is the greatest challenge you are facing with the pests and diseases that you have on your farm? That's what we'll be looking at today. So we're taking a short break and then we'll be back in a few. So make sure you're staying tuned in, and then we're coming back again with some other good vibes, okay? So just go for a short break, do whatever you need to do, and then come back again for this discussion in a few.
Cauliflower is a cruciferous vegetable that is naturally high in fiber and B vitamins. Cauliflowers are annual plants that reach about 0.5 meters and bear large rounded leaves. As desired for food, the terminal cluster forms a firm succulent cud or head that is in form of a cluster of flowers. Cauliflowers do well in fertile well-drained soils that are rich in organic matter. Just like other plants, cauliflowers are also affected by different kinds of pests and diseases which can hinder its growth, including unfavorable climate and growing conditions.
The many problems you will see in cauliflowers, and this one just one of them. You can see how the problem is. It's called riciness. You can see it living in a chana, that is, yeah, living each other, as you always say. But this one is usually caused by low temperatures. Yes, low temperatures. Low temperatures during planting leads to this problem. So you have to make sure during planting you have favorable temperatures for your crops. Always talk to your agronomist when you plant, so you can know when to plant what and what works when. Temperature will depend on your area, the area you are in. Because I can't tell you we are in Nyandarua, I want to grow this, and you are in somewhere in in coast, it's too hot. Yes, so that will depend also in your locality. Yes, and also if you are in those climates where it always changes. So you have to know when is the cold season. In cold season you can't do this because of A, B and C. And if it's too hot you can't do A, B and C. So always, that's why I'll just have an agronomist. We'll guide you through it. Yes. And also do your market research and know what works where before you grow something as a farmer. Don't just do guesswork. There's a lot of pests that attack cauliflower. The most notorious one is aphids. Aphids will circle your leaves, and one thing you'll know, there's aphids on your leaves. They're always curling. Yes, they will eat, or they will suck the sap out of the leaf. And now, when they are too weak, they start curling. They curl inwards. So that's how you'll know you have aphid attack on your farm. Yes. And now what you can do to control aphids on your farm is always keep them in check. By spraying, there's always a chemical solutions to it. There's biological, and then there's IPM. Yes. The perfect head, I'll say it looks like this one. Look at this. It's perfectly round, and it doesn't have any spots on it, and it's intact. That's what makes a perfect head, and is a good size, good market size. Not too small, not too big, not overgrown, just perfect. Yes.
A very good morning to you. How are you doing? I hope you are well. How is your day? So today here we are in County 034, that is Kajiado. We are at Kitengela. It is it was very cold in the morning. So as I was coming in the morning, it was raining actually. But we are glad it is a fantastic day and the week is coming to an end. Who doesn't love weekends? I honestly do. At least I get to spend some time out, try to refocus, try to evaluate whatever you need to be doing for the next week. It's always a good time. And we just have like one day to the end of the week. You are watching The Breakfast Show, and I am your host, Lillian Thomas. I hope we are having a wonderful discussion with you people. If you are watching us for the first time, again, I'll just repeat it kindly. Follow our pages on Facebook. We are at Affirmers. On YouTube, we are at Affirmers Media. I can tell you something. a little bit about our farmers. So, our farmers, we recognize ourselves as the home of the African farmers. We get to tell the stories of the African farmer, okay? We address issues that the farmers are facing. We try to find solutions for you. We try to educate you on the information that you might need. That's what we do at our farmers. And I think we do a great job. I honestly think we are doing a good job. It would be really wonderful if you helped other people access the information. So you can as well share our links. Please do to your colleagues, to your friends, to your family members. Just let people find this information. On YouTube, you can follow us at a farmers media. Subscribe to our page. Hit the notification bell every time we go live. You will always be notified. I told you I'd be sampling your feedback when we come back. But let us start with quote of the day today. It is on a Thursday, April 22nd. And by the way, April is almost coming to an end. I hope you've done great this month. I honestly do. If you haven't done much, maybe it's time to re strategize. Try to find something good to do with your life. So I say, I am the positive vibes auntie. You know that auntie that you have is always, but then what's happening with your life? That is nice. That is wonderful. You can maybe do this. I am that person. So for today, my quote today says, your success is based entirely on your attitude, commitment, and self discipline. Your success is based entirely on your attitude, your commitment, and self discipline. If you don't understand what these terms mean, can you just find out before we get to the end of the period when we'll be looking at that? So you just find the meaning of attitude, commitment, and self discipline. Today, our discussion has been on pests affecting tomato farming. Yesterday, we started our discussion on tomato farming. So we looked at how to produce tomatoes. Depending on the school you went to, it can be tomatoes, whatever you understand it. So I'll use tomatoes for the meantime. Yesterday we looked at basic tomato production. So today we are trying to look at the pests affecting tomatoes. And then tomorrow I said we'll be looking at the diseases we have in our tomato farms. Okay? And I said, if you have any question related to whatever we've discussed during the entire week, on Monday we did something on disasters in agriculture. On Tuesday, we did something on crop production. Yesterday, we started on tomato farming. Today, we are doing pests in tomato farming. And then tomorrow, we'll be looking at the diseases in tomato farming. If you have any question related to the topics we've been discussing about right here on the Breakfast Show, make sure you are sending me feedback on my Facebook page at our farmers on the comment section. I'll be sampling that and then I'll be answering your questions tomorrow when we are done discussing about the diseases affecting tomato farming. I want to sample your feedback and see what you guys are telling me, and then we'll continue with this discussion from where we left. So we started by discussing about cutworms and aphids. We've showed you the images of what they look like. We've told you the effects they have on the crops, and we've told you the control measures. And today I am giving you more of the organic control measures. I am not so much into the chemical control. I am so into the organic measures we can use to prevent these pests and diseases, to prevent and control the pests and diseases on our farms. So going into the comments that you guys are giving me, let me see. Okay, let me start. Gil Zambika. I don't know where you're watching me from, Gil Zambika. I will assume, is it from Uganda? I think so. Gil Zambika says, wonderful information, very important and timely. Thank you so much, Gil, for watching the show. We are glad that you are actually finding our information to be informative. We are glad. Just keep it right here. We always have our shows from morning to evening. I come in the morning for the breakfast show. Noah Nesele Kadima comes in for the mid morning show. And Conrad Kibe comes in for the farm drive show. Very interesting discussions right here. So make sure you're staying tuned in for that. If you miss any of our shows, make sure you follow us on our pages. We always upload every single show on our page. You can always watch it at your free time. So make sure you're doing that. I have another friend of mine. This is Tony Hilary Tonista. He says, watching. We are glad that you're watching, Tony. You never miss any of our shows. That's a very good thing. I think we should get you a present. We actually should. You never miss watching any of our shows. And you also say, yes, madam. What causes bacterial spot and speck? All right. So I see the questions have started coming in. We will be covering that tomorrow, right? I hope that's okay with you because we are doing the diseases tomorrow. And the bacterial spot is part of the diseases we'll be covering tomorrow. So I'll be answering your question tomorrow. Make sure you're staying tuned in for that discussion as well. And we are glad that you're watching the show, Sawa Sawa. And then I have Mother Mohammed. Mother Mohammed is from County 001. I think I'm right. I haven't forgotten. He is from Mombasa County, so he is watching me from Kenya. He says, great. Thank you, Mother Mohammed, for watching our shows. We really appreciate the support. And then I have Tidokoze Farm. I hope I just read that right. Tidokoze Farm says, watching from Malawi. Thank you. Malawi is the southern part of Africa. How are you doing? How are you doing? I hope everything is well on that side of Africa. We are well and we are glad that you are watching our shows. Okay? And I also have Meshak Lagat. Oh, this is a Kenyan by birth. What's your Eldoret? Meshak Lagat says he is watching from Eldoret. And I got it right. Thank you so much, Meshak, for watching. Thank you again. From Eldoret. Eldoret is a very cold place. The last time I was in Eldoret, I came back sick. Your conditions? Hey, kidogo too? And then I have two last people. So Harriet Idena, you are saying hello to us at our farmers. Hello to you, Harriet. How are you doing? How is your morning? I hope you are well. If you have any information, any feedback you'd like to give us more than what you've just said, hello, please do on our page. We'll always look at it. If you have any questions, ask. We will always answer you back in time. Sawa? And we are glad if you are a new viewer, we are glad that you've joined us. This is what we do on the mornings, right here on the breakfast show. So kindly join me every other single day as I take you through the breakfast show. And then I have one last comment. Is it the last one? No, it's not the last one. There are two more. So I have Tidokoze Farm again saying, I missed out the name of the mobile app for tomato growing. Tidokoze Farm. I said the app, it wasn't actually about tomato growing, but the app is about identifying pests and diseases on your crops in the field. And it identifies the pests and diseases in any crop you have in your field. The app is called Plantix. Plantix is the name of the app. And I'll spell it for you. Letter P L A N T I X. Plantix. Okay? That is Plantix app for you. I think we'll just link it. No, I'll just inbox you later on and tell you the name of the app if you have not heard me again. But that's the app. And you download it from your phone, from the Google Play Store, install it in your phone. Make sure you have data. If you identify a pest or a disease on your farm, just log in into your app, take a photo of the pest or the disease that you have identified on your farm, and then it will scan for you the photo, it will diagnose for you the pest or the disease you have on your phone, and then it will tell you the control measures that you need to be doing. So it makes your work easier if you really don't know about pests and diseases. But again, that's why I am here today. If you're doing tomato farming, that is what I am trying to help you today learn and identify some of these pests and diseases, because as I am discussing them, My director on the other side is putting up the images for you. And I really like what my director does. She really does a very good job. So, Sarah, thank you so much for always doing a good job for us here in the studio. Yes. Uh, Two last comments. I really like your feedback. I really like the fact that you keep it interactive with me right here on the Breakfast Show. So I have another friend of mine, Frederick Lewis. This is my classmate from campus. He says, "Hello, I'm tuned in from Pipeline. The show is fantastic. Thank you, Freddie, for watching the show. I hope you're getting into farming. You are using the education you got and you're using it right. And we are also spreading this information right here. So we are glad that you are watching the show. It's a good thing when people you know personally who know you are actually supporting what you guys are doing. One last one last comment from one of our very, very active viewers, Machuki Machuki. Machuki Machuki, I missed you yesterday on my show. Is that something we should address? No, I don't want to do it right here. Machuki Machuki, I missed you yesterday on my show. I didn't see your feedback yesterday on my show. I don't even know if you watched my show last yesterday. But today you are saying valuetainment. Oh, I think it's another version of instead of entertainment. So here we are giving you value. And on the other side, it is entertainment kidogo. So valuetainment following live from Kissy. Thank you, Machuki Machuki, for watching the shows. And don't be going missing. You know, there are people I know who are always watching and giving me feedback. Machuki Machuki, Motha Mohammed, Colin Skuley. You guys don't disappear on us. Don't. And we always like whatever contributions you give us on our shows. So make sure you are staying tuned in for all of our shows. I said Nona Sally Kadima comes in for the mid-morning show at 11:30, and then Conrad Kibe comes in for the Farm Drive show in the evening. We like educating you people. We are here for you. At our farmers, we help you attain knowledge so that you can grow your profits. So want to get back into our discussion. But even as we are getting back into our discussion, another reminder, if you are a tomato farmer, you've been doing tomato farming, you know the pests and diseases you usually have in your farm. Can you let us know? How have you controlled them? What preventive measures have you always taken in order to control these pests and diseases in your farm? How effective has it been? How costly has it been? We really want to understand the logistics around it. Tomorrow we'll be looking at the diseases. So we are getting back into our pests. I don't know if we'll be able to complete them today, or maybe we will just wrap them up tomorrow. So right now I want to talk about another third pest. So we've already covered cutworms, we've covered aphids. Right now, we are going to be talking about root knot nematodes. Root knot nematodes. Just as the name suggests, roots. The effect is usually in the roots. That is where you usually see the effect majorly. And I find that they are very common, especially for people who are using sandy soils. They are very common in sandy soils. And these actually pests, it causes the root to swell. I know my director is going to be putting up for you that on the screen. So it causes the roots to swell. Swelling is like you expand in size. Okay, I think you understand me. It's like you expand in size. It causes it to swell. And then after that, you find out that after some period of time, the roots tend to rot. But also, you actually realize their effect because they cause stunted growth on your crop, and then you find that your crop is wilting. Your crop is wilting. It wilts and actually dies, and sometimes it is even wilting while it's still green. So it depends. It can wilt when it's green, it can also wilt when it is yellow. So it causes a yellowing effect, or sometimes the crop wilts while it's still green, okay? So they cause the swelling, they cause stunted growth, they cause the crop to wilt, and actually your crop is even wilting when it's still green. But in some cases, rare cases, they wilt when it is yellow. The root nematodes, sometimes you find they're just in the soil. So when you do crop rotation in your farm, you are able to control your nematodes in your farm. Yesterday, when I was talking, I was given an introduction of tomatoes. I said tomatoes are in the Solanaceae family. The Solanaceae family consists of tomatoes, potatoes. I mentioned capsicum. Capsicum for Kiswahili speakers, that is pilipili hoho. Pilipili hoho, in other words, maybe you know it as green pepper, yellow pepper, red pepper. All those are capsicums, okay? So capsicum is in that family. We have potatoes, we have tomatoes, and then we have nightshade. Nightshade is a traditional vegetable. For us, here in Kenya, it is mostly known as managu. People in the coast call it mnavu. Yes, I don't remember what the Luo people call it, but they have a certain name, which I really don't remember. I am Kisi. Kisi, we call it managu. That is what it is known by. So they are in the same family. And we said when you are planting your tomatoes, you ensure you are not planting your tomatoes in a field that was previously having any of these crops in the same family. So you don't plant your tomatoes where you had capsicums previously, or you had potatoes previously, or you had manago previously. So make sure you are doing crop rotation. If you find your field is invested with nematodes, the best thing to do, can you actually practice crop rotation? Yeah, try practicing crop rotation. Maybe you can try it with crops in the brassica families. Brassica family consists of crops like kales, cabbages. Those are the brassicas. You can try and rotate with them. Or rather, you can actually pardon. Wow, it is very early in the morning to be doing that. You can actually plant cereals such as maize. It can actually work. They help in controlling the nematodes you have in your soil. We have a lot of technologies around, okay? And we have breeders who are doing a very good work. So shout out to everyone who is into plant breeding. And every time they breed, you find they come up with varieties that actually are resistant to some of these pests and diseases. And we have varieties that are resistant to root nematodes. And you find they have a VFN label, which means they are resistant to nematodes. And some of these varieties, one particular one that I know, especially in Kenya, the Kentom variety, is resistant to nematodes. So if you can be growing varieties that are resistant to these diseases and pests, you make your work easier. Your control actually becomes easier. So if you can find a variety like Kentom, what is this other variety? I have the Vegas variety. The Vegas variety actually makes more sense. Also, in order to control this particular disease and pest, you can actually use intercropping method. And intercropping, you are advised to intercrop with marigolds. Marigold helps in the control of root nematodes in your soil. Again, I always go back to we are going organic. If we are using chemicals, we have to use chemicals that are not harmful to our environment. You can as well use biopesticides in order to control the root nematodes. So the biopesticides you can use mostly in the horticulture business, we use the neem soap, neem insecticidal, neem spray, anything, any form of neem. That is what we apply to our crops in order to control most of these pests and diseases. But are you a tomato farmer? Are you? Okay. Yes, no, or sour? Have you had cases of root nematodes in your soil? You have, all right. Can you tell me how you controlled them? What method did you use? Okay, it's okay if you used a chemical method, a chemical spray, a chemical insecticide to control it. Can you let me know the chemical that you used? Good. Just let me know that on my comment section, and then I'll be reading that for other farmers at the end of the show in order for them to know how they can actually control these pests and diseases that they have on their farm. The next pest that I want to look at is the tomato whitefly. I don't know if my director can find that image and put it up on the screen. I hope you do. Okay, Sarah says she can find it. So she's putting up the image of tomato whitefly on the screen. I want you to first identify it and then we get into the discussion about it. So, Sarah, do you have it? Okay, so Sarah has put up the image of the tomato whitefly on the screen. That is what the tomato whitefly looks like. They are white. It is a white fly. They are white. You can see them? Yes, I can also see them from my side. They are very small insects, white in color, and they actually attack your crops from the point where you are at, from the seedling stage to around the mature stage. Just take a good look at them, be able to identify what they look like, such that when you find them on your crop, you can really identify them. This crop, these pests, they suck sap from the leaves and they actually weaken the plants. And in crops that are affected, you find that the crop tends to yellow. If you can see the leaf we have on that side, that's the effect it has on the crop. And then it tends to affect the plant growth and the quality that you have of your plants. On another side, it causes a disease that we will be talking about, a very common disease called the tomato yellow leaf curl virus. The tomato yellow leaf curl virus. How do you control the tomato whitefly? The tomato whitefly you can actually control. There's a time they are very rampant and there's a time they are not very rampant. So you can control by timing when you sow and when you transplant your seedlings. You can also use cover crops and mulch. You find that they reduce the damage they have on your crops, especially after you have transplanted. So the first 10 to 20 days, ensure you are covering your soils and your crops, like use a mulch and use cover crops. Also, you can cover your tomato seedlings by use of a net. And as I've always told you, when you are controlling pests, we are looking at all methods that you can actually use to control the pests in your farm. Biological control always comes in handy, and we covered a little bit of that when we did a show on integrated pest management. If you didn't watch it, you can just go back and try and find it. So, for integrated pest management, you can actually use the biological control. Here, you can use other enemies, like you find some pests have natural enemies. They can be attacked by these other natural enemies. For the tomato whitefly, they can be controlled by the use of the ladybird beetle. The ladybird beetle actually is a natural enemy of the whitefly and it helps in the control of these whitefly. And again, we always go back to the basics. Make sure your farm is free from weeds because weeds tend to harbor these whiteflies. Make sure that your farm is free from weeds, like completely. And also, pest scouting is very important. It is very important. And I told you, do it as regularly as you can. As regularly as you can. If you can do it, a week has 7 days. Do it like 4 out of 7 days. It makes sense. 4 out of 7 days. So you check today, you skip tomorrow, check the other day, skip the other day. Like very consistent, and you can be able to identify them. We have a physical method of controlling, and you can use the yellow traps. So you put your yellow trap in your farm, and then you find that these ninis are trapped by it. These tomato wet flies are trapped by it. Again, our neem soap. Our neem soap is very effective in the control of pests. You can spray using the neem soap and it will help. We've had cases whereby you use other plants to protect other plants from getting these diseases. Like they act like repellents. Yeah. You know something like a mosquito repellent, the way you apply it on your skin and then they repel mosquitoes. It's the same thing. There are some crops that when you plant them in your field, they help to repel some of these pests. So for the tomato whitefly, you can actually repel them by planting fenugreek and coriander. So I don't know if most people in Africa actually know what fenugreek is, but I know you know coriander. Coriander is a spice that you use. I see. Okay, how am I supposed to define it for someone in Malawi who might not know what I mean by coriander in English? Okay, in Kenya, if you speak Swahili, Tanzania, we call it dania. It is the common dania that we use. Coriander is a spice. You see, when you have cooked your food, the spice that you use to garnish your food, the small green leaves, that is coriander for you. When you plant coriander or fenugreek in your farm, it helps repel the tomato or whiteflies. I think I should be looking at, I've seen someone post something here that I wanted to look at and see if it was something adding up to what we are discussing about. Okay, we'll just be looking at that later on, kidogo. So we've discussed root knot nematodes. We've looked at tomato whitefly. The tomato whiteflies, we've said you can control them even by planting things like fenugreek and coriander in your farm. The neem soap. The neem soap has proven to be very effective in most of these pests and diseases that we have in our horticultural crops. So if you are dealing with anything in horticulture, make sure you have the neem soap with you. It will always come in handy just in case you have any infection in your plants. I think you've been able to identify the white flies, how small they are, those tiny white insects that you have on your screen that Sarah has just put up on your screen. Those are what we call the white flies. So in a little bit, we'll be looking at thrips, and we'll also be looking at the leaf miner and the fruit borer. That is what we will be looking at. But I want us to go first on a break. I want to take some water, honestly. I want us to go on a very short break. And then when we come back, we'll be looking at the thrips, the leaf miners, and the leaf borers. I think that's why we will be wrapping up our show today. But let me remind you again our quote today, even as we go on the break, so that when we come back, we continue with this discussion where we've left it and wrap up the show, right? And then tomorrow we'll be getting into the diseases affecting tomato farming. So, our quote today says, your success is based entirely on your attitude, commitment, and self discipline. Your success is based entirely on your attitude, commitment, and self discipline. We're going to take a short break and then we'll be back in a few minutes. Just don't go away, okay? Good morning to you. Welcome back to the Breakfast Show. I am your host, Lillian Thomas, and I am glad that you've joined us here today at Our Farmers, the home of African farmers, where we help you attain knowledge and you grow your profits. That's what we do right here at Our Farmers. We are live on Facebook at Our Farmers. On YouTube, we are at Our Farmers Media. If you haven't subscribed to our YouTube page, kindly log in into YouTube, search for Our Farmers Media, and subscribe to our page. You can as well hit the notification bell and make sure it will ensure that every time we go live, every time we upload a video, you are notified like first hand information. Who wouldn't want that? Because we have great information, I know you would like that. So kindly subscribe to our page and hit the notification bell. Before we went on a break, our discussion today has been on pests affecting tomato farming. So we've covered several pests. We started by covering cutworms. We looked at aphids. We've looked at tomato whiteflies. We've also looked at root nematodes. We have like 3 to 4 more pesticides to be pests actually to be covering. And that's the discussion we are having today. But I also asked you, if you are a tomato farmer and you've been growing tomatoes and you have pests affecting your crops, what pests have you been able to identify? How did you identify them? How did you control the pests you have in your farm? We would like to know. You can share with us the information. I am talking majorly about the organic control, but if you are using chemical control, you can as well let me know. There's someone the information might be helpful to. So just let us know. And I said I'd be sampling your feedback. So I just have like one more comment to read that I know I didn't sample before we went on the break. Wow, this is a hard name. So I'm just going to say Olatunji Hezekiah says he is watching from Nigeria. Thank you. Thank you, Hezekiah, for watching the show. We are glad that you've joined us. I know we always have a very huge fan base from Nigeria, and we are glad. Today I have people watching me from Nigeria, Malawi. I have people from right here in Kenya, Mombasa, Nairobi, which is a good thing, and Eldoret, which is a good thing. We are glad that you love our shows and that you keep watching our shows. So we will start with the quote of the day. The quote today says, your success is based entirely on your attitude, commitment, and self discipline. Your success is based entirely on your attitude, commitment, and self discipline. That is quite self explanatory. But if you don't understand, you can find what attitude means, what commitment means, what self discipline means, and then we'll be looking at that just as we wrap up the show. So just stay tuned in for that. Want to get back into our discussion. So we've always already covered like 4 other pests. We've looked at cutworms, aphids, root knot nematodes, and tomato whitefly. And now I want to get into some 3 other pests. I'll be looking at thrips, leaf miners, and the fruit borers. And I will start with thrips. Thrips are very, very small insects. I know my director already has that image, so she'll be putting it up for you on the screen. Thrips are very small insects, very small. Actually, most people never actually recognize them on their crop. They are really small that you really need to be very careful in order to identify them. Very small insects that actually stay on the underside part of the leaf and they suck the sap. They suck the sap at the same time they cause punctures on the leaves. It's kind of the leaf holes. You find your leaf has small, small holes because of the sucking that they do on your leaf. So they kind of distort your leaf. In a way, they deform your leaf. So my director has put up an image that can show you the effect the thrips have on your leaves. That's the effect that they have on your leaves. You can actually look at that. If you've seen something of the sort in your farm, it could be as a result of thrips. They actually, when they suck this up, they leave your leaf having some silver streak. I don't know if I have a silver color right here in the studio. Okay, I can't identify one, but they leave a very shiny silver surface on your leaf. At some point, it actually turns into black spots. They also tend to affect the crop in the buds and in the flowers. So you have to be very careful, especially in the flowering stage, as when they affect the crop in the flowering stage, especially when they attack your flowers and buds, if it is very highly infested, they tend to make your flowers fall, meaning you will have reduced fruits in in your crop. So be very careful because they are more rampant in the seedling stage and in the flowering stage. So you have to be like pest scouting very regular, as we said, 3 to 4 times in a week because they affect the buds of the flowers and they affect your flowers and they cause the falling of the flowers. And when the fruit actually grows, they tend to cause deformation on your fruits, which is not the kind of thing you would like for your qualities of tomatoes. No, that's not what you want. And there's a way you can actually control them. The first one, again, the natural enemies, which is a biological control. So you can use the ladybird beetle. The moment you have ladybird beetle in your farm, it helps you control the thrips in your farm. So you can always, I don't know if Isipe actually tends to, you can get these natural enemies from ECP. They tend to provide them. So when you have them in your farm, they tend to control the levels of trips you have in your farm. The other method you can use, as I said again before, the neem soap. Either you use it as a soap, you use it as an insecticide. It is very, very strong on the thrips. The neem soap is very useful, especially if you are doing horticultural farming, because most of the pests and diseases we have in the horticultural crops, they tend to be similar a little bit. Most of them, you get, the crops are attacked by similar pests and similar diseases. So the neem soap actually works for most of them. If you've seen from what we've been discussing, all the entire pests we've been looking at, most of them can be controlled by the neem soap, and it works very well and very effectively. So make sure you have the neem soap. Also, the sanitation in your field has to be top notch. Sanitation in your field has to be top notch. Again, no weeds in your farm because the weeds tend to harbor some of these insects. They tend to harbor even the thrips. Make sure you have no weeds in your farm completely, like completely. One thing I should have mentioned about using the biopesticide, like the neem soap. When you are using the biopesticide in your farm, you spray early in the morning. We never spray anything during other days. Spray early in the morning when you have the pest actually on the leaf. Like you can actually see the pest. You can spray early in the morning. It tends to be more effective. Before you actually have this trip, you always find that their pupa lives in the soil. Their pupa tends to live in the soil. Tilling, plowing, harrowing helps destroy the pupa while still in the soil. So it is also an effective method of controlling the thrips in the soil. Sarah, kindly put up the thrip and the effect of the image you have on the screen for people to have a look at it for the one last time as we get into the next paste that we have. So Sarah is putting up that for you. That is the effect we have, especially when you have the thrips in your farm. That is what it looks like. So we are getting into our next pest. Our next pest is actually the leaf miner. The leaf miner, it is more like, okay, so Sarah just put up, or she already put up that. So that's okay. She'll be putting up also the leaf miner on your screen, and then you can be able to identify what it looks like. The leaf miner is very interesting. So it's actually its effect on the tomato leaf. It actually affects it like on the side. So on these sides of the leaf, like on the sides, it leaves punctures on your sides. If you have a leaf, this is a leaf, it actually leaves punctures on the sides of the leaf. If you can see the image that Sarah has put up, you can see a little bit of deformation on the side of the leaf. So it actually leaves punctures on the side of the leaf. When it affects the side of the leaves and leaves punctures, it actually minimizes the surface you have for photosynthesis to take place, which means it will be affecting the fruit development and also the flower development. I think you understand. The moment you have in any way deformed the leaf or in any way altered something in the leaf, you tend to affect photosynthesis. Photosynthesis helps the plant make food in order to develop the fruits, to develop the flowers. So the moment you have these, it actually affects everything. If you have too much leaf miners in your farm, they make your leaves to fall a lot. So you will be having a lot of defoliation in your farm. Especially in the seedling stage, they make your leaves to fall a lot. When your leaves fall a lot, if you had fruits in your farm, you find that they are actually exposed to sunburns and it affects the quality of the fruit that you have. The control, again, we are going back to the control that I have been explaining since we started. It is more of the organic control, but if you use these other chemical controls, you can let us know what method you use, how effective it has been for you, and how, if you can actually even tell us the logistics, how pricey it is for you, at what time you apply, at what rates you apply, the better. Okay. So for the control of the leaf miner, you can actually use again the biopesticides. The biopesticides that you use, you can use the neem. Neem, either use it as a soap or you use it as an insecticide. Again, rotation of the crops in your farm helps a lot. So you rotate your crops with crops that don't host the plant. So I give an example. When you rotate with crops in the brassica family, crops such as in the brassica family, we have the cabbages, we have the kales. They will help you control the leaf miners in your farm. You can also use cereals to control them. So just rotate. Crop rotation in your farm is very important. The leaf miner pupa actually stays in the soil. Again, when you till your soil, when you harrow your soil, when you plow your soil, it actually helps control the leaf miner in your soil. And also, you see the leaf miner as it grows, because it's usually like in caterpillar form, as it grows in the adult stage, it is more like a fly. You can always trap it by use of traps, the usual traps, the yellow traps, and it works very, very well. One thing I have to tell you, when you are spraying pesticides, we don't want you to use the wide spectrum pesticide. We want you to use a very specific pesticide. So if you are using, just use the neem pesticide, which is good enough and it will do the work that it is required to do. So I am going to be looking at the last pests that I had today. And then tomorrow, we will be looking at the diseases that affect our tomatoes in the farm. So the last pest that I have today was the fruit borer. So I forgot to bring up something. Oh my God. I'll just bring it up tomorrow. I had, we in our farm, we have watermelons. The watermelons kinda also get affected by the fruit borer, and I had one watermelon that was actually infested, and I had cut it, I would have shown it to you, but I will remember to come with it tomorrow morning and I'll show it to you what it looks like. So we have the fruit borer. The fruit borer can always come in form of either the American bollworm or in form of the cotton bollworm. So it is like a caterpillar. It affects the fruit, more specifically the fruit. It accesses the fruit through the stem and then it gets into the fruit. So if I have a fruit of mine, it actually gets into the fruit and lives inside. So you can't really control it because it is already inside. Once it has infected your fruit, you can't really control it. It is inside. So any spraying that you do on the surface won't be effective. It won't work. The moment it has already gotten into your fruit, it won't work. Nice. I have seen the image that Sarah has put up for you. Like that is a clear illustration of how it works. So it affects your fruit by getting into your fruit. And Sarah has used a very good image, like in the process of what happens. And that is what the fruit borer actually does. And it actually causes a lot of loss because you can't really control it once it is inside the fruit. And in tomatoes, if you are not careful, it can cause more than 70% yield loss. So you have to be very careful because it causes damage in your fruit and causes decaying of your fruit. And it actually attacks mostly green fruits. So make sure that you are being very careful. Your pest scouting, you're doing it very, very well. Monitor your crops regularly. Now let me go to how you control it because this is the last pest that we are looking at. You can actually control it again by use of the biological method using other pesticides to control it. So we have natural enemies of the fruit borer. You can use the ants, you can use the spiders, you can use the parasitic wasps, you can also use the ladybird beetle. It helps control this particular fruit borer. Also, because I told you, it can always come in form of the American bollworm or the cotton bollworm. Most of these American bollworms and most of these cotton bollworms, you find that they attack either the maize or they attack cotton. So make sure wherever you are planting your tomatoes, they are not close to maize or to the cotton crops. Make sure they are not anywhere close to the maize or to the cotton crops. Monitor your crops very regularly. And I always say, if you find actually a crop that is infested, like I find a fruit that is infested, cut it off. Cut it off, get it away from your shamba. Don't let it stay in your shamba. And if you can find, because you find the eggs somewhere on your soil, when you find the eggs on your soil, can you just hand pick them and get rid of them? And if you also find the caterpillar before it gets into your fruit, just hand pick it and get rid of it. And when we are spraying, again, we use a selective spray. It is more effective. You use a selective spray. The BT spray has been working, especially you see, like to control the cotton bollworm. We use the BT spray and it is very effective. So use a very selective pesticide to actually control this pest. So those are some of the pests that we have, the most common ones that affect tomato farming. Tomorrow, we will be looking at the diseases that we have in tomato farming and we'll be looking at how to control them. And I said, if you have any questions regarding to any topic we've discussed this week on the breakfast show. So on Monday, we did something on disasters in agriculture. On Tuesday, we discussed crop production. Yesterday, we started on tomato farming. Today, we've done pests in tomato farming. Tomorrow, we will be doing the diseases in tomato farming. Make sure you're sending me any questions that you have in regards to the topics that we've discussed in the entire week. And then we'll be answering that tomorrow. And tomorrow, we will be looking at the diseases we have in tomato farming. And as well, you can let us know what do you want to hear from us? What do you want us to discuss? We will do that for you. That's why we are here at Our Farmers, help you attain knowledge so that you can grow your profits. So this is where we are going to be wrapping up the show. And as we wrap up the show, I want to take us through, as we all know, right? We've been having COVID around. COVID has been with us for more than a year right now, since it came to Kenya. And I can say we are here today mainly because we've adhered to the government precautionary measures that have been put in place for us. So that means we've been putting on our masks, we've been keeping social distance, and we've also been washing our hands and regularly sanitizing. Sawa? And I still recommend that we do that. Put on your mask, let it cover your mouth and your nose. Wash your hands regularly, or rather, sanitize if you can't wash your hands. And if possible, keep social distance 1.5 meters whenever you are in public places. And if you have no business going outside, definitely stay indoors. Our statistics as at yesterday, so this is Kenya, because I know people watching me from Malawi and Nigeria, but this is specifically in Kenya. In Kenya, we had 965 positive cases as at yesterday from a sample size of 7,311. The positivity rate is at 13.2%. The recoveries were 1,441. The deaths are at 21. As you can see, the numbers are still very, very high. The numbers are still very, very high. The positivity rate is still very high. Let's just kindly keep the precautionary measures that the government has put in place for us. My people in Nairobi, Kajiado, Machakos, Kiambu, and Nakuru, the curfew is still at 8 p.m. till the 29th of May. Make sure it finds you at the house. Make sure you are done with your errands by 8 p.m. We'll be doing this again tomorrow. But before we get into what we need to be doing tomorrow, so our quote today is: your success is based entirely on your attitude, commitment, and self discipline. Your success is based entirely on your attitude, commitment, and self discipline. Your attitude is more about how you perceive things. Are you positive? Are you negative? So that determines if you are positive, good. Positive people tend to succeed. A negative person tends to fail. Your commitment. How much work are you willing to put into whatever you are doing? How much work are you willing to put into whatever you're doing? We always say give it 100%. If you are willing to work on something, give it 100%. There's nothing like 98%. It is 100% or nothing. Give it 100%. Self discipline. How much can you stick to what you need to do? How much can I stick to what I need to have covered today? How much can I stick to what I need to have achieved by the end of the week? That is it about self discipline. So, your success is based entirely on your attitude, commitment, and self discipline. If you have been failing, maybe it's time you reviewed. Look at how your attitude is like, what your commitment is like, what your self discipline looks like. That's where we are wrapping up the show, but we have other shows coming up for the entire part of the day. If we won't be having a live show, be assured we will be streaming something else for you to be observing. If you missed any of our shows, you can actually find our shows uploaded on our Facebook page at Our Farmers, on YouTube at Our Farmers Media. Conrad Kibe will be coming in for the Farm Drive show at 3 p.m. So make sure you join him for that. He always does some really good shows and very educative, very informative. So make sure that you're joining Conrad Kibe for the Farm Drive show at 3 p.m. I'll be here again tomorrow morning at 8:30, the usual time, or at 9 o'clock. We'll be here for the breakfast show, and tomorrow we are looking at the diseases affecting tomato farming. You can keep sending me your questions at our page at our farmers, and I'll go through your questions. And whatever I will be covering tomorrow will be based on your questions. And also, I'll be informing you about the diseases we have in our tomato farms. And any questions you have concerning the discussions we've had this week, specifically on the breakfast show, anything regarding to whatever was covered on the farm drive show, you can just post it. It will be addressed by Conrad Kibe, but I will be addressing everything on the farm drive show. So make sure you are commenting on any of the shows I did during the week. Just post your questions there. I'll be going through them tomorrow and we'll be answering your questions. As you go on with your day, make sure you are being a fantastic person. You are achieving amazing things. You are born to be an achiever, okay? Make sure you are achieving amazing things, and in everything you're doing, you are trying to make this world a better place for yourself, for the people near you, for your friends, for the generations coming. Make the world a better place, and as I always say, be kind. Be kind, very important. You never know what someone is battling with. Be kind as you go along your way. Until tomorrow, it is goodbye from me. Catch me here again tomorrow at 8:30 in the morning for the breakfast show.